Welcome to the January 14th, 2019 County Commission meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to call on Commissioner John Gannon to lead. I'm going to call on Sheriff Fuson to call our meeting to order. And if you would, please remain standing for the pledge led by Commissioner Gannon and our invocation by Commissioner Creek. Sheriff?
All rise. Oh yes, this Honorable Board of County Commissioners is now in session pursuant to adjournment. Now may God save this state and this Honorable Board of County Commissioners. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for your love and your watch care. We thank you for this legislative body and their willingness to serve. We thank you for the leadership you've blessed our county with. We also pray for those that are in need, particularly those that are homeless and those who are searching for employment. Now, just guide and direct us as we conduct the business tonight, and let us respect one another when our views differ. It says in the Bible that let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And the greatest need in this world is transformation of human nature. We need a new heart that will not have lust and greed and hate in it. We need a heart filled with peace and joy. And that's why Jesus came to this world. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the roll?
You have 21 present, 0 absent.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a proclamation to present tonight, and if I could get Mr. Mike Evans to come forward. Just right over here. How you doing? Good, sir. Mike, I have a proclamation I'd like to read to you. It's a proclamation by the county mayor. Whereas for the past 19 years, Mike Evans has been the face of industrial recruitment in Clarksville and Montgomery County. Whereas Mike began as executive director of the Industrial Development Board in October of 1999 and has been an integral part of securing approximately $4.8 billion in capital investment in recruiting and retaining 7,600 jobs, including creating the corporate business park, which has grown to include a north and south expansion and is home to some of the largest names in global industry, to include LG, Google, and Hankook Tire. Whereas on March 15, 2018, Mike shifted gears and began the role of Executive Director for the Economic Development Council, where he continued to facilitate and promote economic development initiatives until December 31st, 2018, when he stepped down from that role into the role of retirement. And whereas over the years, Mike brought a wealth of experience and knowledge to the IDB and EDC after working in local industry as a comptroller for more than 20 years. And whereas Mike has called this community home for over 65 years, and Montgomery County is extremely fortunate to have had him, his knowledge, his professionalism, and his vision on improving economic development for all citizens and for being an essential part of making Clarksville, Montgomery County what it is today. And whereas we hope Mike will enjoy his retirement years spending time with his wife, 2 children, and 4 grandchildren, enjoying life, he will definitely be missed by his peers, his friends, and his co-workers. Now, therefore, I, Jim Durrett, on behalf of the citizens of Montgomery County, Tennessee, do hereby recognize and show appreciation to Mike Evans for his years of loyal and dedicated service to Clarksville, Montgomery County. We hope his retirement years are filled with happiness and good health. Mike, thank you so much for a job well done. Thank you, man. Will you say something?
County Commissioners, I want to thank you all. I had the joy of getting to know many of you. Some of you are new and I haven't had an opportunity to work with, but the team that the Economic Development, the IDB, and this community put together includes the commissioners, the councilmen, the mayors, all of our regulatory people such as building and codes, gas and water. Everybody became part of our economic development team, and because of that, some very tough decisions were made in this room, or maybe it was the old school board room because that's where they were meeting back in '99. But this commission and the city council voted to invest $28.6 million in this community's future. And because of that, we have that $4+ billion of new investment and those 7,000 plus jobs. And if you use the state average, and I had to have a note for this, that state average wage of $35,510 for industrial employees, that generates $277,500,000+ annually in payroll. And gentlemen and ladies, that's what drives this economy. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, man. God bless you.
Commissioners, our first order of business is approval of our December 10th, 2018 minutes. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Ray, is there a second? Commissioner Beal, any discussion on our December 10, 2018 minutes? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you. On to our zoning resolutions. Our first resolution is CZ 25-2018, application of CNH properties from AG to C5. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Beal, is there a second? Commissioner Gannon, any discussion on CZ 25? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. CZ 26-2018, application of Krukenberg LLC from R1 to R2D. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Gannon, is there a second? Commissioner Lewis, any discussion on CZ 26? Commissioner Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to again ask the commission to please vote no on this zoning case. We currently have a resolution before us to designate money for design fees for Rossview Elementary that is currently at 117%, and that elementary school services this area. I am also going to ask anybody who is in opposition to this rezoning to please stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Beal. Commissioner Smith.
I'd like to just take this time to readdress some facts of this case. And I've had a chance to speak with Mr. Krukenberg, Mr. Boyd, and Mr. Maglaccio, the three parties involved in this case. This land is already owned now by Mr. Maglaccio, who is going to be the new owner. He does not plan to develop it. He plans to remodel the home that is existing on it and put one of his children in there. I would like to applaud Mr. Maglaccio just because of the fact that he came forward when he didn't want development next to him, and he did something about it. He purchased the land. He did not want the development. He actually sent us an email. I don't know if he sent it to all the commissioners, but I know it came to me about opposing this before he had bought the land. So I would like everybody to take that as a fact of the case into consideration when you vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Beal, I'll give you an opportunity unless there's anyone else that wants to speak. Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. I would just like to respond to that by saying that if that's the case, we can keep it rezoned. We can keep it zoned R1. Keep in mind that if we approve this, then the developer can and the owner can do whatever they want to do that falls under that classification. So the purpose of what he wants to do, it can stay with the current zoning that's there. Thank you.
Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it very much. I hesitated at saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say this anyway. Lately, with the zoning cases we've had in my district and out in Sango, there's been a rise of divisiveness that I felt in the community. And I urge all parties, just because a farmer sells property to a developer doesn't make that farmer or developer evil. Likewise, when citizens don't want a certain development in that area and they protest against it, doesn't make them evil either. But I would plead for civility. One of the things our community prides ourselves on is how good of a community we are. And people look from the outside when they see these type of issues come up and the amount of divisiveness, it casts a pall on our city, on our county as a whole. And I would urge civility, if at all possible in these cases in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. Any other discussion on CZ 26, 2018? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 4 yeses, 16 noes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. CZ 27, 2018, application to Krukenberg LLC from R1 to R4. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Lewis, second. Commissioner Smith, any discussion on CZ 27, 2018? Commissioner Smith.
Once again,
Joe,
I'd like to state some facts on this. Last week at the formal or informal meeting, a gentleman stood up and said that the developer had already developed a lot of stuff around him and pushed water onto his land. I did some checking at the RPC and even called the developer to question him. That developer has not done any developing or sold a house on XL Road. I just wanted that put in there as a fact of the case, because a lot of times people can just say whatever they want without a fact being true. So that is one of the facts.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else to speak regarding discussion CZ 27? If you would, please register your vote. Chair is going to vote yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 11 yeses, 10 noes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that's all of our zoning cases. We're now going to move into the election process for District 22 for the Senate seat. Just so I can quickly go over some rules. Once we have nominations on the floor, and we can actually accept nominations now, or we can accept some from the floor. Once we have a field nominated, each one of the nominees will be allowed to address the commission for 5 minutes. Commissioners, you can ask questions if you'd like to once the applicant gets through with their presentation. I would, for those that are nominated, I would respectfully request that when you hear the timer go off on 5 minutes to immediately try to wrap up your comments. And with that being said, I will open the floor for nominations. Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate all 12 of the nominees: Dennis R. Bagwell, Jeff Burkhart, Robert Bradley Edwards, Mark A. Harris, Rosalind Carita, Stephen W. Lomax, Bradley D. Morrow, Dennis J. Potvin, Barry Schmittou, Joel Wallace, Frank William White, and Sue Ellen Yates.
Is there a second to that nomination? Second, Mr. Creek. Any further nominations from the floor? Any further nominations? We will now cease nominations. We have 12 individuals that have requested to, or that have requested to be elected or appointed to fill this seat. At this time, we will start calling those people by name. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and so I would ask that you try to, if you're maybe on that side of the room, maybe try to get over here at the door or somewhere a little bit closer when we start this process. Our first person to address the commission will be Mr. Dennis R. Bagwell. I would ask all the 12 nominees, too, if you have anything to hand out to the commissioners, Investigator Stone will, if you'll just get his attention, he'll hand them out for you. Thank you. Mr. Bagwell, good evening.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and the Montgomery County Commission, and the Honorable County Mayor. My name is Dennis Bagwell, and I appreciate this opportunity to address you, to perhaps have the opportunity to serve the 3 counties of this Senate's 22nd District for the state of Tennessee. I was born and raised in Clarksville, and I have connections also to Stewart County through my parents and my grandparents and further back. Living here most of my life and educated here, I've worked numerous jobs, junior high school, my college years at APSU, and my Stewart County located career job with the TVA. I believe I have a pretty good feel and sense of where this district has come from, or this area has come from, history-wise, and thus the best directions to try to steer it, to help steer it, by means of representing in the state capitol. I come from a more or less working class blue-collar background of farmers, teachers, lawyers, construction work, wartime service, and small business owners. And I'm thankful that our state has a balanced budget amendment. And I only wish that our nation did too. So I believe in fiscal budget responsibility. I also believe in law enforcement. And at the same time, I realize the need for criminal justice reform, I believe mainly in criminal prosecution. I also believe in veterans affairs and advancing educational opportunity in Tennessee, specifically bringing back in a bigger way vocational training with career support training for it where the state government can assist. Also in helping small business and new businesses starting up. And in maintaining our infrastructure. I don't forget the bridge that collapsed in Minneapolis, St. Paul 2 or 3 years ago. So I think certainly the appropriate safety inspections and expansion of our infrastructure when needed, always with fiscal responsibility, budget responsibility in mind. I also believe in the preservation of Tennessee's parks, waterways, forests, and natural resources. And from middle to east to west Tennessee, the small towns and the cities, I believe I can listen and learn to understand the various issues that would come before the state legislature. I also believe strongly in the U.S. 10th Amendment, and that the powers not delegated to the United States, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. And the first article of the Constitution listed the powers of the U.S. Congress. Thus, to me, this means they're being listed that the Congress in Washington, D.C. was never meant to hold all powers, nor the executive branch, nor the judicial branch. We all know it's supposed to be a balance. Our first president, George Washington, is stated as was making the statement of our U.S. Constitution as it little short of a miracle. And our state's Constitution is based upon that Constitution, now standing more than 230 odd years. I know better than anyone else in this chamber that I come here with really thin political experience, and thus few political credentials per se. One list of requirements of my 29 years at the TVA was that I could hold no elected office, no elected position. So I had to go by that. So, per se, no political credentials, but I'd also take no political baggage to Nashville with me.
Mr. Bagwell, if you would, please wrap your comments up.
Yes, sir. I thank you again for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Bagwell. Any questions, any of the commissioners of Mr. Bagwell? All right, thank you, sir. Our next person is Mr. Jeff Burkhart. Good evening, Mr. Burkhart.
Good evening, sir. Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with y'all tonight. I also want to appreciate your time for the last month, few months of, and I probably speak for all 12 of us. We appreciate your time talking to us, emailing us, texting us, answering our emails, answering our texts, and talking to us on the phone, because I know that this has been a process that involved all 21 of y'all, and I appreciate that. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I know that we sent resumes out and we sent the cover letter. I'm a lifelong resident of Clarksville. Went to Clarksville Montgomery County School System. I'm a retired firefighter. I'm a small business owner. I have a daughter, Meredith, who attends Lipscomb University. I'm a member of the Hilldale Church of Christ here in town. Most notably, I'm a sitting city council person right now with about 23 months left on my term. I had the privilege of being elected in 2008 and reelected in 2012 and 2016. I enjoy representing the constituents. I enjoy public life, and that's why I'm seeking Senator Green's vacant seat. You know, it's kind of like following maybe Pathead Summit or Nick Saban or Bear Bryant when you try to follow Senator Green. I can only hope that I can do part of the work and some of the work that he has done. Senator Green has done some amazing work at the state representing District 22. I like Senator Green. I'm a conservative. I've worked for the city. I've been on the city council for 10 years. I've never supported a tax increase in those 10 budget years. In addition to being a city council member, I've been past president of the Tennessee Home Builders Association, which means I've worked for the last 10 to 12 years in the state capitol, working on bills for legislation to keep housing affordable for everyone. 30% of a new home price today is government regulation. So we must keep that to a minimum. I feel like it's every Tennessean's right to own a home. I feel like I know the lay of the land, so to speak, at the Capitol, and I've already met with Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, and I've tried to cover some bases. I know most of the senators and most of the reps that are already in place. Some of the needs of District 22, I'd like to touch on just a few. I think without question, all of us know the growing pains that we're under with our road situation. That must be addressed and most of our roads in Montgomery County and Clarksville are state roads. So it would take city, county, and state working together to make sure that that is addressed. One of the other concerns that I hear is rural internet service for Montgomery County, Stewart County, and Houston County. We have got to get that where our school children, our professionals who work at home, we've got to get them high-speed internet to their homes so that they can do their homework, do their jobs, and make sure that every homeowner has that opportunity. Tonight I just asked that, I would ask for your vote. I ask for your vote of confidence. I'm kind of in a unique position. I'm a former government employer. I'm a legislator for the government, and I am a small business owner. So I see all three sides of how things work in government, and I have a unique perspective, and I'd appreciate your support, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Commissioner Knight.
Thank you, sir, for getting up there and spilling your beans about who you are. But I do have a couple questions I'd like to ask. So, former state senator, now Congressman Mark Green was a veteran and an advocate of veterans in the state of Tennessee. Will you support veterans and assist in solving veteran-related issues?
Yes, sir. I do a lot of things with the veterans and with the VA now. Mm-hmm. And anything that I can do to promote the veterans. I have some interest in some real estate that are now veterans, and it's been rewarding, to say the least, of things that we've been able to do, and it's been nice. And I would do anything I can for the veterans. Senator Green, me and him talked about that on Saturday, matter of fact.
Okay. Last question. What have you done specifically in your personal and professional life to support veterans? And let me be clear, I myself am a 3-time combat veteran, and I'm a former 2-time company commander in the Army Reserves. So let me know exactly what it is specifically that you've done to actually assist with veterans.
Well, anytime that the military calls on us as small business owners to support anything they're doing at the base. I know Yvonne Pickering was very good at calling on us to support our veterans for whether it's a golf tournament, whether it's whatever. We're always there to do it. And, I have 2 businesses, and both of them are named Screaming Eagle. So, and I'm very proud of that, and that has nothing to do with what I've done but when just something that comes to my mind, being you asked that question. I remember a few years ago when there was a funeral out at Fort Campbell, and our trucks went out there and lined the road to block the protesters from Kansas. And that was a proud moment for me, supporting our veterans.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, Mr. Burkhart? Commissioner Pritchard?
Mr. Burkhart?
Yes, ma'am.
We thank you for your extensive resume.
Yes, sir.
I'm very familiar with all the work that you've done here in Clarksville. My question is that in the short time for this particular position, why would you take this position, considering that you have so much more influence in the things that you do now?
Well, if I'm going to seek the position, I'm going to seek the position at 100%. I'm not going to seek it for this particular term tonight. probably is 65 or 75 days, and I'm just taking a round number there. But I intend on seeking the office. I intend to hit the ground running, for lack of a better term, and I want to do the work. I want to go up there and meet with the legislators that I know and get things done, working with Jason, with Jay, Curtis, friends of mine, and I feel like that anything that there's no sense putting it off if you really want to do the job and you're committed.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Burkhart.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Next, we have Mr. Robert Bradley Edwards. Good evening, Mr. Edwards.
Good evening, sir. I want to first say thank you guys for the opportunity to speak tonight. Growing up, my parents told me you have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them accordingly. So that's what I plan to do. With such a diverse population in our district, you know, some families have been here for generations, some families are passing through, and then some families like myself have only been here a short time but love the community. While I've not been here very long, I've only been a resident of Clarksville 4 years, I've grown to love the community. My son went to high school here for 4 years. He's since joined the military. My kids are involved in local sporting events, sports. With that being said, just as our neighbors to the south are growing in Nashville, so are we, and we're suffering some of the consequences of that. Clarksville's grown nearly 30,000 residents in the last 10 years. With that growth come challenges. You guys saw the agenda tonight. There are a lot of things on the table. There are 43 bills before state legislature right now. What I would like is the opportunity to represent Houston, Stewart, and Montgomery County and their views, their values, and their opinions to the state legislator. It is not solely my views and values when it comes to voting. We have a lot of residents here. I'd love that opportunity. Any questions you guys have for me, I'd be willing to answer.
Commissioner Knight.
Once again, thank you for taking the opportunity to tell a little bit about yourself. That being said, what have you done in the community that would make you the ideal individual for this particular position?
I have not done anything in Clarksville community. I work for the Davidson County Juvenile Court. I've been there for 6 years, and I'm a very big proponent of both criminal justice reform, but also child welfare reform. Several of the bills that are proposed right now have a lot to do with child welfare. Relative caregiver, I see what happens to the children who come into state's custody and the end result. And I would like to propose bills that are preemptive, not just reactive.
Last question. In Article 1, Section 1 of the Tennessee State Constitution, what is the first statement presented there?
I do not know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Thank you. Mr. Mark A. Harris. Good evening, Mr. Harris.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Mark Harris, and Clarksville has been my home for more than 30 years. I was originally brought to this community, like so many, in service to this great country. During that time, I have worn many hats. I have held leadership positions throughout my career, working as a site manager on Fort Campbell and serving as a city councilman through the 3 different administrations, and presently I am currently working an industrial maintenance supervisor at Hankook Tire. I have dedicated my time here to public service and the betterment of our community. This is personally important to me. I am married, a father of 5, and recently blessed with my 3rd grandchild. Through my extensive public service and leadership, I have developed an understanding on how government works and how to best serve the people I represent. Further, I am a military combat veteran from Special Operations. I understand the importance of honoring our troops as they serve and after they have made Tennessee their homes. We have great representation in Tennessee, Montgomery, Houston, and Stewart counties, including those are you, the elected officials who are here today. And I would be honored to serve as the interim senator for District 22. The vacant seat left by Congressman Green should be filled by someone who will represent the people who elected him until this special election. As I wrote in my nomination letter, I will not be seeking the permanent seat for District 22. There are many candidates to choose from this evening, several of whom I've had the great privilege of working with in the past. We all have the same resume tonight, and that is being a military veteran, past elected officials, and a lot of community service. But I believe I'm the best candidate for this appointment because I represent all 3, in which the counties of Montgomery, Houston, and Stewart would benefit. There's another reason why I differ from the other candidates. I grew up in the 9th Ward of New Orleans. Some of you may have heard of it. It was the most devastated area in the city during Hurricane Katrina. My elementary school and the project courtyards where I played do not exist anymore, which is a good thing. I worked hard to pull myself up and dedicated my life to public service, especially kids and troubled adults. Choices and decisions. Now I humbly seek to continue serving as an example for the kids who are growing up in a similar situation, because that is what this is all about. Making a future better for all Tennesseans and providing them the opportunity to flourish. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has a quote that reads, "If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way." I vow if you appoint me to this position, I will serve the citizens of Montgomery, Houston, and Stewart counties in a great way. I appreciate your time, and may God grant you the wisdom in this important decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any questions of Mr. Harris? Commissioner Knight.
I think I'm probably the only one asking questions, but
Yes, sir.
if given the opportunity, what would be your top 3 priorities for District 22?
One would be to continue Congressman Green's last actions in reference to supporting the veterans of this community, which is very important. 2, just making sure that the tri-counties of Montgomery, Houston, and Stewart counties are represented at the state level in Nashville. And the 3rd would be to actually participate and be accountable and speak in reference to accountability for our youth in that position as a whole.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchard.
Mr. Harris,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you so much for all the service that you've given us over the years. You're an asset to this community. My question is, because this is a short-term position, I know just as well as anybody else when you're new in a position, there's a learning curve. Are you anticipating being able to hit the ground running?
Yes, Commissioner, I am. I have acknowledged that this is a short-term position, but I'm also aware of this going into a voting session and a lot of the concerns of the tri-area, Montgomery, Houston and Stewart County will be represented, and that's the most important thing, making sure I represent the tri-counties.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Question for Mr. Harris? Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Ms. Rosalind Carita. Good evening, Ms. Carita.
I have to have my assistance. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my good friend Joe Creek. Joe Creek and I served together on this Montgomery County Commission for many years, and now I think that he is the patriarch for the commission and really a role model for many, many public servants. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you have another hard decision. Being a county commissioner is a hard job. And tonight it's particularly hard because this is an unusual kind of job for you to appoint someone to an elected position, particularly because this position is to the General Assembly, which has already begun its work. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we are already a week behind. The Speaker of the Senate, Randy McNally, has already been elected. Randy and I served together in the Senate, and you can see that I'm getting to be an old gal, but Randy was there before I was, and he's still there. There are a lot of the senators that are still there from when I served my 12 years. Every year, when the Speaker is elected, they then will appoint the chairs of all the committees and then assign the senators to those committees. Every one of those have already been appointed. And so whoever you send is really going to have to start at a trot because we are already a week behind. All of the counties have presented to their senators and their House members their own list, their list of their legislative agenda. And you all have issued your agenda, and it has 12 points. I have read it and studied it, and number one on your list is to make sure that we have high-speed internet access to the rural community, and that includes Stewart and Houston County. You know, once upon a time, having high-speed internet was sort of a luxury, but now it's really a necessity. And for us to do that, actually this is an issue I worked on long ago. This issue now has a whole coalition of counties counties that are working together. And there is a County Commissioners Association, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. That is part of the coalition, and we have a good team. Commissioner Gannon is the president-elect for the County Commissioners Association. So together, this is something we really can make happen this year, is to try to make sure that all the rural areas do get high-speed internet. And the other really major issue that we have has to do with our transportation and infrastructure. You may recall that last year, the General Assembly passed what is known as the Improve Act. The Improve Act is a revenue stream that is dedicated to funding our roads and bridges. Montgomery County has 4 projects on that list. And if you send me up there, I will see my job as being to protect the Improvement Act and to protect the funding. We have to be sure that our road projects don't get picked off, that they don't lose their way or get diverted. And I have served on the Transportation Committee. I've served on most every committee in the Senate. And on the Transportation Committee, I have had a very good track record of bringing transportation money for roads, home to Montgomery, Stewart, and Houston counties. And in doing that, you also have to really work with the Department of Transportation to be sure that nothing just loses its way. You really have to stay on it. The Senate, like the County Commission, is a hard job, and it needs your full attention, your energy, and I still got some game, folks. You need to be able to work hard to stay on top of these issues and to be dedicated to it. I do not have to resign from any job. I am not running for any office, and I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve my community as your temporary person, and then I will come home and report to you. Thank you, and I appreciate your support, and will do a good job for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carita. Any questions of Ms. Carita? Commissioner Knight?
Thank you for taking the time. I'd like to ask, and I know you've had the experience being at the state level previously. So that being said, what are your thoughts on the state of Tennessee improving processes in the education system regarding evaluation of IEPs for special needs children and children with autism?
You know, Commissioner, in order for me to give you an intelligent answer, I would have to study it, I would have to read it, I would have to know it. I don't speak off the cuff about something I don't have an in-depth understanding of. I was hoping you would ask me, what have I done for veterans? And then I could tell you,
I'm not going to make it that easy for you.
then I could tell you that I received the Outstanding Service Award from Disabled American Veterans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ms. Carita? Thank you, Ms. Carita. Mr. Stephen W. Lomax. Good evening, Mr. Lomax.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening and tell you a little bit about who I am, because I think that's what you're looking for. You're looking for who that individual is that would be going up to the Senate. I grew up in a very small town in Missouri, Potosi. I don't know if anyone's ever gone to Potosi, but it's kind of like Clarksville. It's a small community that had big aspirations. And I grew up there and I loved that city. And I grew up with a mother and father who taught me basic rules of how to live a life. And the things they taught me were aspects of how do you get along in this life. And one of the big things was that you listen to people, and you really listen. You don't just give them ear service, but you really listen to individuals. And that has proven well throughout my career. I didn't know it that early on if I was going to go to college. My parents, neither one of my parents attended a university, but I had a young man who had gone to college in my church and said, you know, you need to think about that. And I went and fell in love with learning, and I still have a great love of learning. I went to Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, and obtained a nursing degree there. Started off in a large medical center, taking care of patients in open hearts after open heart surgery. That taught me not only the science of nursing, but also how to take care of others, how to listen to families, how to listen to those individuals who were suffering during that time. After working there a couple of years, I entered the Army and entered as a second lieutenant and absolutely loved the Army because, again, it was giving back to those service members that were giving so much. And if you remember back in the 80s, it wasn't all that fashionable to be in the Army. A lot of people were getting out after Vietnam. And there was a lot of individuals that stayed in, and they gave so much. They could have done a lot of other things, but they stayed in the Army and they served this country. So I continued in the Army and got a number of different jobs. I had jobs in intensive care units, in trauma units, in recruiting command, cadet command, and research command. At research command, I was the officer in charge of an isolation unit that looked at biological outbreaks around the world and worked with the FBI and the CIA. I was honored to be on 2 different deployments, one in Somalia and one in Iraq. And in both those situations, I grew tremendously as an individual, not only as a healthcare provider, but as an individual in caring for those soldiers that were out there each day giving to the country. So I'm very knowledgeable about veterans and the needs that they have. In fact, my wife and I right now, we ran across on the internet a veteran that was having some problems, and we've gone out and done work with that person individually just to help them out. At the end of my military career, I ended my career as the commander of the 86th Combat Support Hospital. As a commander of that hospital, not only did I work as that executive officer of that command, but also with General Campbell on post. After retiring from the Army, I took a position in Washington for a year. And as the senior clinical analyst, we looked at medical disposable items like IV bags and IV catheters, and they had never had across-the-board work on standardizations. And they needed someone to standardize that for the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. And I was the key person on that. We did 50 line items and saved the U.S. taxpayer millions of dollars in that situation. And I was very happy with that. But I miss Clarksville. And so the university here, Austin Peay State University, asked me to come back and to teach. And so I gladly did that. I came back and taught for 5 years, over 500 nursing students within this area. And I was the chairman of the scholarship committee and was able to make sure students who were going there had scholarships to stay in this area, because that's what we needed. We needed those nursing students from APSU to stay here, not to run off down to Nashville or to other places. And so I did that. I also, after I retired from there, I took a position as a director for critical care services at Tenova, and just assisted the hospital here in upgrading a number of things in critical care areas.
Mr. Lomax, I don't know if you heard the buzzer, but if you would, please wrap your comments up.
Thank you. These have all given me great insights into caring for veterans, for people, and to understand what needs to be done. If I'm chosen to take this temporary position with the Senate, I can assure you that I'll work tirelessly to support the people of these counties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lomax. Any questions of Mr. Lomax? Commissioner Knight?
Sir, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I was actually on post during the time of General Campbell, so I'm tracking. That being said, if given the opportunity, what would be your top 3 priorities for District 22?
Again, I think veterans continue to need a lot of assistance, and we've got to keep that in the forefront of what's going on here. Education in this area, and also health care. Those are 3 big areas that I think continue to need to be looked at and to be cared for within the counties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. Mr. Lomax, do you plan on running in the special election?
I do not.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Lomax? Thank you, Mr. Lomax.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Mr. Bradley D. Morrow. Good evening, Mr. Morrow.
Good evening. Thank you. Mayor, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, Thanks for being here for tonight and for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. Most of you don't know me from Adam, and you got no idea why you ought to trust your voice to me in the General Assembly. So I'll start with a little introduction, a little bit about where I am, where I come from, who I am. That was funny. And then we'll get into why I'm asking you to send me. The two most important things anybody needs to know about me are that I'm a Christian and a single father of 3 girls. I believe in Jesus and the power of God, and second only to the power of God is the power of 3 teenage girls to run a man ragged. My girls are 11, 12, and 14, and pretty much everything I do revolves around trying to raise them and prepare them to make it in this world. At this point, that means a lot of social media monitoring, pulling my hair out, trying to keep up with all the new apps and the cool memes. Not to mention style, don't have a lot. Hair skills, none. And don't even get me started on makeup. I was raised in a small town about 3 hours from here, Somerset, Kentucky. Population about 11,000. My dad was a social worker, my mom was a teacher. I'm adopted and I was their only child. I was brought up in the Methodist church and I'm still a member. My first paid job was as a lifeguard at the church camp I went to every summer for about 8 years. I'm an Eagle Scout, a Kentucky colonel. I speak Spanish and German fairly well. In addition to lifeguarding, I've been a meat cutter, a construction laborer, and a dishwasher at a big chain restaurant. I'm a recent graduate of Austin Peay with a degree in public management. I started college when I was 17 at the University of Kentucky for mechanical engineering, but apparently I signed up for the 21-year bachelor's degree program. I got it finished, but I had a few other things going on in between. So I also served 18 years in the U.S. Army. I served on 4 continents, fought in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Africa. I am a leader. I was an embedded combat advisor to Iraqi troops. That's a lot like what the MACV did in Vietnam, for anybody who remembers that. I've done satellite communications, public affairs, and community relations as well. When I retired in late 2017, I could have easily gone back to Kentucky, but I chose to remain settled here. Clarksville in Montgomery County has been my family's home for 8 years, and I didn't see any good reason to uproot my kids and move again. We've got a good mix here of rural, suburban, and urban. We've got great churches and excellent schools. We're diverse and we're growing. And we have outstanding academic and economic opportunities here for anybody who wants them. We're also a community full of people who generally say what they mean and mean what they say. And that's why I'm standing here. I drive the same roads you do. My kids go to the same schools yours go to. I pay the same taxes you pay, and I rely on the same police, fire, and EMS. I want high-speed internet and reliable Wi-Fi just like everybody else in every corner of this district. I care about the people of this district and the issues that are affecting us directly. Traffic, road expansions, school funding, and teachers' pay, and managing the growth of the community in the best way possible. Do I have positions on the big news national issues? Free speech, Second Amendment, pro-life, pro-choice, immigration? Of course I do. And I'd be happy to discuss those positions with anybody. But the way I see things, my personal politics don't matter right now. It's absolutely irrelevant what I think about the border wall, for example, because we've elected senators and congresspeople to go to Washington and advocate on our behalf for that. No doubt there'll be some really stand-up people running for this seat soon. I'm not one of them. One of them will end up serving you all very well once you vote and tell them how to. For now, though, you've already voted. You already said how you wanted to be represented, and that's what I'm here to do. I understand why the Montgomery County Commission has the legal responsibility to make this appointment, but the truth of the matter is that seat in the Assembly chamber doesn't belong to the Commission or to any one of us up here asking to fill it for a while. It belongs to the voters of District 22, and you've already decided for now how you want to be represented. When the special election comes around, you get to decide again, but until then, I believe the voice of the vote should be respected. When you send me, you can have faith that your voice there will be clearly heard, undistorted, not filtered through any individual ego or hidden personal agenda. I'll be working for you. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Morrow? Commissioner Knight?
Sir, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
That being said, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Exactly as I mentioned, high-speed internet, Wi-Fi access, road expansions, and based on a call I got this morning from the school district about critical shortage of bus drivers, or this afternoon, I'm sorry, critical shortage of bus drivers, apparently we got to work on some budget things. So, school district.
Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Mr. Dennis J. Potvin. Good evening, Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Commission. My name is Dennis Potvin. I'm applying for the position of State Senator here in District 22. I'm applying because the values that I live by, I believe, are the same as those of my neighbors. Values of God, of family, of hard work, of volunteering, and of community. I've worked and managed in factories for 24 years. I have a master's degree from Austin Peay. I'm a member in good standing of the Friends of the Roxy, the Friends of Dunbar Cave, and the Montgomery County Historical Society. I've coached for Clarksville Parks and Rec, and my family has sponsored several events at the animal shelter, including being regular volunteers there. I'm a man of conservative values. I grew up as the grandson of a Baptist minister and part of a family where literally every man believed that service to his country was an absolutely essential part of being an American. My father was a Marine, one grandpa was in the Army, one was in the Navy, and when I was 16 years old, I asked a recruiter how best I could serve my country. The next year, I was nominated by my congressman to attend the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. However, a missing bone in my lower back disqualified me from service. I went from being potentially the first officer in a family of enlisted men to being the only man in my immediate family who could not serve. This has left a void in my life. And the opportunities of serving my community in 2018 and now may provide a chance to serve in a different way. Being an Eagle Scout, I learned to be trustworthy and loyal, and I have been a loyal companion to my wife for 23 years, as well as a father to our daughters. My older daughter starts at Austin Peay this fall. I may have conservative values personally, but this office is not just about me. It's about all of us. It's about lawmaking that acknowledges the collective values of a community without assuming that everyone believes the same way or demanding that they should. I am not a liberal, but I do believe in progress. And we all know that we live in two states today. We live in one that's doing extremely well with a strong economy, where Tennesseans make good money and have health insurance and enjoy life to the fullest. But then there is another that is hurting, with residents who work full-time yet cannot make ends meet. And we need a senator who represents all of us, whether farmers or factory workers, whether soldiers or students or small business owners. We need an advocate for the over 250,000 people who live in this district, and by that I mean all of the people. In 2018, I ran for State House in our 68th district. I'm proud that almost 9,000 of my neighbors gave me their vote. We established platforms and we stuck with them. Most importantly, we ran a clean campaign that proved that we could avoid attacking, avoid hyper-partisanship, and compete in a major legislative race without making my opponent the enemy. And he was a longtime incumbent. But I never forgot that Representative Curtis Johnson and I are neighbors. I'm applying for this position because I want my kids to grow up in a Tennessee in which they are free to make their own decisions, where lawmakers try not to govern morality but govern with morality. Lastly, I'm applying for this position because this is my home. We work here, live here, play here, and go to school here. And I want my kids to live in a Tennessee that leads the nation in creating positive change that impacts the lives of all of our residents, regardless of their income or their backgrounds. If we raise the tide, we lift all the boats. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for your consideration.
Any questions of Mr. Potvin? Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Mr. Barry Smitto. Good evening, Mr. Smitto.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. About the 11th time I spoke with you all about animals, I realized I cannot hear the little buzzer when it goes off, so if you'll please let me know. Thank you. First, a little bit of boring information about me. I was national field manager on the Lego Toy Merchandising Project, also managed regional projects for Nabisco and Epson, and I wrote the training manuals for those. And when I represented Disney, I won the Outstanding Performance and Excellence Award from them. And I'm just telling you all that because my ideas are big, they're national, and they're not accepted quickly or readily, so I keep pounding away, as y'all know. And I'd also like to say that the county, we depend on the state and the national government and what happens there, and that's why I'm talking with you about things that are happening in the state and nation. The United States of America was born when local citizens got together and fought against corruption and lack of representation. 200 years later, in 1961, President Eisenhower said, "The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes." End of quote. Right now, we have organized corporate criminals committing numerous dangerous and deadly frauds in multiple types of business, and they're giving elected officials huge contributions, and no one's being prosecuted. I'll quickly give you stunning examples of the corporate crimes that are seen in the 37-page summary that I submitted to our commissioners. I think it's unlikely I'll be selected as an interim senator. I'm hoping to plant a seed, and someday people will stand up and cause local, state, and national elected officials to do whatever's necessary to stop these deadly patterns of organized corporate crimes. And I'll tell you in 5 minutes, I can't come close to touching this. Anyone who's watching via video or would like to see it, please go to corporatecrimeevidence.blogspot.com. That's blogspot.com. It's about 20 pages, and that's really just a summary of 70 pages that I have. Drug money controls much of the national banking industry. Here are quotes from the UK's Observer. At the height of the 2008 banking crisis, Antonio Costa, then head of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, said he had evidence to suggest the proceeds from drug and crime were the only liquid investment capital available to banks on the brink of collapse. Wachovia Bank laundered $378 billion for the Mexican cartels, and no one was prosecuted. That's enough money to fund the entire Afghanistan war twice or half the entire Iraq war, and no one was prosecuted. There are cartels in 1,000 U.S. cities today. The evidence that I have, I've got evidence on pharmaceutical companies. Right now, we're seeking money from the opioid companies, but nobody's getting prosecuted here, and I think we should go for that. I'll quickly try to tell you, I think God, in the Bible, God works in people's lives when they're broken like me. I've had cancer removed from this eye, have a big crater, have image jumps in the other eye. I drove here, hadn't had but one wreck in the last 10 years, and that person hit me. So I filed a complaint in 2006 that led to the indictment and conviction of State Senator Ford. 2 years later, Federal Judge Bryan in Nashville wrote I had more than sufficiently alleged fraud against MetLife. And then I saw I found all these cases where MetLife ignored life-threatening medical conditions of many patients. They trained agents to ignore evidence. Judge Richard Enslin wrote, MetLife and its henchmen regard their treatment of psychological patients. Then I saw where they rigged bids to increase sales of the policy. James Lipscomb with MetLife signed the agreement. I remembered he had given President Obama $30,000 for the After Victory Party. And then I found where the attorney firm signing for MetLife gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to President Obama. And in my personal claim, it's a phenomenal. MetLife wrote a denial 20 days after they signed the bid rigging agreement, and U.S. District Judge Trauger wrote that they conspicuously omitted my eye cancer surgeon's diagnosis. And from that, there are many more violations that they did in my case and others, but the DOJ and DOL won't touch them. I've had many people contact Marsha Blackburn in the past, and she didn't take action on it, but I'm requesting that people contact Congressman Green and Senator Blackburn again and ask them to take action. And please, again, go to corporatecrimeevidence.blogspot.com. The Bible says seek justice, but it doesn't just say seek justice locally. It's talking about everything. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight, do you have a question?
Barry, thank you so much for providing all that information. That being said, former state senator, now Congressman Mark Green, was a veteran and an advocate of veterans in the state of Tennessee. Will you support veterans and assist in solving veteran-related issues?
Yes, I will try to do my best to learn everything I can, and I will tell you, I'm also, I did a lot of parties at Fort Campbell. I played that funky music, white boy. I was ready for you, Commissioner Knight.
Air assault.
Did the Officers Club, a lot of places at Fort Campbell for WABD, which actually, ABD actually stands for Airborne Division. My mother was manager of the station. I can keep going, man.
Air assault.
Commissioner Beal?
Will you be running in the special election?
No, I will not.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Smitto.
Thank you.
Mr. Joel Wallace.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you also for serving our community. As someone who served on a local legislative body, I know serving can be meaningful and it can be exciting. I also know that there's a time commitment required, and to do the job right requires a lot of effort. I know it's not always easy to take all the information you can get your hands on and use it to make the right decisions. I know controversial zoning cases are probably obviously a great example of that. I want to use a quick second of my time to recognize three others who served on the city council with me. One is a commissioner now, and that's James Lewis. Also, two applicants here tonight. One is Jeff Burkhart and one is Mark Harris. I bring those guys up because we served for a long time together on the city council. And, you know, we didn't always agree, but I think we tried to generally conduct ourselves in a civil manner, tried to listen to each other, tried to do what's right for our community. Like Commissioner Harper said, civility was always important to us. You know, at the end of the day, it wasn't personal. We tried to respect each other. That's the type of spirit I would try to bring to serving in the Senate. I'm here because I love this community. I know that we need to have a strong advocate in the Senate who can get to work immediately. Senator Alexander's fond of repeating advice from Alex Haley, who is a friend of his, and he said, if you would begin by saying, instead of giving a speech, I'm going to tell you a story, people might actually listen to what you have to say. So I'll tell you just a couple of stories, but important part of who I am is my family who came before me. My paternal grandfather left Bumpus Mills over in Stewart County to serve in World War II in the Army, and then came here and ran a downtown hamburger joint called The Huddle. For a time, he both lived and worked where Downtown Commons is today. I don't know that if they were acquainted with each other, but a few blocks away, down closer to Public Square, the other side of my family was running a machine shop. They had been here a little bit longer. Public service on that side of the family has always been a big deal, and both of my grandparents have actually served on the city council. I think a big part of my interest in public service has come from my grandmother, who was the first woman on the city council. But I really bring all that up to just tell you that this area is home for me. Home by choice for my immediate family, for my wife, my child. You know, I had the opportunity for about 10 years to live in Memphis, in Washington, D.C. I'll tell you, I liked both of those places, but the thing that really probably why I was most happy to live there is because it makes me, or made me, appreciate this area even more. Professionally, I'll just say I've got an active law practice. I practice in Montgomery County, Houston County, and Stewart County. I think that's profession is a good dovetail into some of your legislative agenda items. I know you've each had a chance to review our materials. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about that, but I do want to reiterate that I don't intend to run for this position. I pledge to you that I don't intend to do that. I know really that reasonable minds can differ on this issue, but I question really whether you want to appoint someone or give someone a leg up. You know, I question whether that's in the best interest of the voters of this district. I think it's probably not ideal to have someone serving or it's probably not really workable to have them serving during session and trying to campaign at the same time. I want to tell you quickly, I've reviewed your legislative agenda, and I appreciate all the effort you guys put into it. And I'm going to go up there. If you guys select me, you have my word, I'll do everything, working with the other members of our delegation to try to move that forward. Rural broadband is a big issue for me, and I served quite a while on the CDE Power Board, and so broadband obviously is something that we dealt with, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of kind of the give and take statewide on that issue and kind of who some of the power players are. We've had a little bit of change, but in the past, and the Haslam administration has done some things, but I know that we need to do more. I understand on your issue with trying to get a feasibility study on a juvenile detention center, how important that is as someone who practices in juvenile court. Another general sessions court judge, I'm there all the time, so I got that. You know, you've listed roadway stuff. Ms. Carita talked about the Improve Act. You guys have talked a little bit about 840. You know, that's really an interesting opportunity I see to try to build kind of a multi-county coalition. You've got stuff about county bank accounts, being able to view those. I'm a guy who supports transparency in government, so it's a no-brainer to me. I'll close by saying kind of maybe something's obvious to a lot of us, but people in other states are envious of Tennessee, and people in other communities in Tennessee, they're envious of what we have here. The good things that have happened, I was glad Mike Evans was here. The good things that have happened, particularly with like industrial recruitment and things like that, they've happened because both sides have worked together. Both sides of the aisle, your Hankooks, your LGs, your Google data centers. You know, if you look at Garland Johnson's picture with Sundar Pichai, it's Democrats and Republicans. So bipartisanship is definitely necessary. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Appreciate your consideration.
Commissioner Knight.
Everybody at this point is probably getting tired of me asking questions.
No, sir. Not me.
But I noticed that you did read the legislative agenda. I have too, ad nauseum. That being said, the one item you didn't mention in the legislative agenda is panhandling. And panhandling within the past 4 or 5 years or so has become a significant issue to where I think the city council a few months back had held a special session to address that situation. That being said, what would be your plan of action to help with this issue?
Here's the deal on that, and I am familiar with that, having served on the city council. I've read this, and I'm supportive of what you guys have put forward, but I will tell you, I'll be very candid with you, it is tougher than you think. You know, if people are in the public right-of-way panhandling, that's one thing, and that really needs to be focused on. But, you know, if they're on private property, you've got some huge potential legal issues. I think a good way to deal with it is trying to get people to donate, educate people and say, look, this money is not going to the right places. Give it where it needs to go, and let's have an effort to try to steer people in the right direction. But no, I'm supportive of this, but just be aware it's not as simple as it may seem in terms of trying to prohibit it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you.
Mr. Frank White. Good evening, Mr. White.
Evening. Mayor Durrett, commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be considered to stand in the role of District 22 State Senator. You've listened to over an hour of campaign pitches tonight. I ask you for 5 minutes to listen to a straightforward explanation of why I'm the logical choice to fill this position. I'm a native Tennessean. I lived outside the state only for military service and for education. My wife and I settled in Clarksville, Montgomery County, over 40 years ago. We chose to settle and plant roots in Montgomery County. Since my time as a political science major at Middle Tennessee State University, I've closely observed the Tennessee General Assembly. My undergraduate project placed me in the state capitol, interviewing and meeting with state legislators on a regular basis. That gave me an early insight into the workings of the Tennessee General Assembly. My role in the Tennessee National Guard uniquely placed me in frequent contact with key leaders in the state and gave me a greater connection with the workings of state government. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no time for the appointee to this position to get up to speed and learn what's going on in state government, learn their way around the state capitol. I'll be able to join the General Assembly, join the Senate when they convene again on Friday. I'll be able to take my seat and know what's going on in the General Assembly. There's a lot of work to be done. There's much to get started right away. Many critical issues are facing the General Assembly right now. And this year is a critical year for the General Assembly in Tennessee. The person you select needs to be able to step in and represent the people of the three counties of Montgomery, Stewart, and Houston. We need to have someone there to look at those issues and deal with the issues fairly, wisely, and compassionately. We need to deal with health care. Health care is a critical issue for the General Assembly right now, especially for the more rural areas of Stewart and Houston County. It hits them greater than it does you here in Montgomery County. Health care is a significant issue there. It's one that needs to be dealt with quickly by the General Assembly. We need to deal with the opioid crisis. The sheriff has talked about that in recent weeks. It's a crisis that needs to be dealt with. It's more devastating every day. The General Assembly needs to develop a plan to work with sheriffs, to work with local law enforcement, to deal with that issue. Education, transportation, internet, roads, a list of other issues that need to be addressed. Many of those are issues that you've sent to the General Assembly saying these are issues you want to be addressed. The person who fills this role as senator from the 22nd District there'll be a person elected on April 23rd, but between now and then, the General Assembly will have spent 3/4 of this session. So the person you appoint tonight will serve 3/4 of this year in the General Assembly. There's a lot of work to be done. This person needs to be there, ready to go to work immediately, and get involved in the work of the General Assembly. This person needs to be someone who is knowledgeable on the issues and willing to do what's best for the citizens of this district. My background is unique among the candidates you've heard from tonight. I've been a journalist covering all aspects of government and military in Montgomery County. When I first came to Montgomery County, my office, I could look into the window of this room from my office right across the street there. I've worked in corporate world, managing million-dollar budgets. I've operated a successful small business, and I raised a family in Montgomery County. While several candidates have come before you tonight as U.S. Army veterans, I'm the only veteran coming before you tonight who has served in the Tennessee Army National Guard. As a member of the Tennessee Army National Guard, I served in Desert Storm. I represented Tennessee in Desert Storm. As I stood alongside soldiers wearing 1st Army Division, Gary Owen, Old Ironsides, I carried the Tennessee Army National Guard into that fight. Born and raised in the hills of East Tennessee, educated, working in Middle Tennessee, learning more about the communities of Middle and West Tennessee through the Tennessee Army National Guard, I know this state. I love this state. I'm a son of this state, and I'm willing to volunteer to serve again for this short time to work for the people of District 22. I thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions of Mr. White? Mr. White, thank you. Ms. Sue Ellen Yates. Good evening, Ms. Yates.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. Commissioners, my name is Sue Ellen Yates. I live at 402 Glen Cove Drive. I stand before you tonight as a candidate for the appointment to the Tennessee 111th General Assembly as the District 22 Senator, serving the citizens of Montgomery County, where I have lived for 29 years, and Houston and Stewart counties, where I have frequented over the last decade through the participation in the youth sports of my two children. I would like to first mention the 12 legislative agenda items this body adopted for our state representatives to pursue during the 111th General Assembly. I support all those items and would like to comment on two areas. In my hand are 5 draft bills that I have completed to address 5 of the agenda items that are ready to be finalized for introduction. Next, infrastructure is a specific area all citizens agree should be a priority. After the recession surrounding the 2008 financial crisis, states all across our nation saw economic growth slow and a funding shift to Medicaid and pensions. As the economy has rebounded, our tax collections increased. States today are finding the necessary dollars to pay for infrastructure projects. For example, under the 2017 Improve Act, Montgomery County has received $293,897 through the first 4 months of this fiscal year. It is a beginning that I personally was pleased to discover. The ongoing question is how to allocate tax dollars in the best way. Commissioners, here is a $100 bill. You can spend it using simple math, as we know, all at once, 100 different ways, or several other combinations. Again, my conviction with our tax dollars is to be efficient in the best interest of our citizens as a whole. Again, what I want you to hear is the importance I place on proven financial principles that serve the priorities of my fellow citizens. For I firmly believe, while equal outcomes cannot be guaranteed, a role of government is to ensure equal opportunity through its economic environment for any citizen to better themselves. An economic environment that attracted a man named Solomon that I met, who used to swim across the Nile River with crocodiles, to go to church rather than to walk around the mountains. He came to the U.S. for an opportunity now, and now runs his own business. An economic environment that inspired my father-in-law, who had a childhood memory of going to sleep at night to the sounds of hogs rutting under the bedroom floor for a better life. An economic environment where my own mother, who often says, I started over at the age of 50 because we lost our family farm. I believe firmly the good in our form of government promotes this kind of spirit. How? I think the answer is in the preamble to our Constitution, we the people. It is people from all walks of life, like you, serving in your capacity as commissioners. It is people like one of you who started a nonprofit where one of the services helps prevent homelessness. It is people like me, out of the gratitude for the livelihood this community has provided my family. The hospital and doctors where my 2 children were born, the schools, the sports, our church, and on I could go about how blessed I feel. This gratitude prompts me to step forward doing my patriotic part to serve in the legislative body where the people's voices can be heard, all the people. Serving in an interim capacity, I only can give my time to the citizens of District 22 without the distraction of a job or participation in the primary or a special election for this seat. As a Republican, I would be able to join or form coalitions with the majority party. Commissioners, if these things resonate with you, a senator devoted to financial discipline, a senator devoted to the voice of all the people, embracing our differences, because history proves that when we hammer out those, we provide the best solutions to move us forward on the continued quest for the betterment of us all. A senator whose life's phase permits wholehearted devotion of time to serving. A senator only seeking this interim position. A senator that can bring a fresh set of eyes to the process as a first-time public servant, like many of you. A senator above all, grateful to give back to this community. Again, Commissioners, if these points resonate with you, I respectfully ask for your vote to serve as the District 22 Senator. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Knight?
Will you support veterans and assist in solving veteran issues?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Yates. All right, Commissioners, at this time, Ms. Jackson, do you want to explain the ballot and the process as you're going to do it? And once you do that, I'll explain to everyone how this vote will go, and we'll begin our voting process. Hi, Tiffany.
Speakers on? There we go. Thank you. We have placed packets on your desk that have the ballots for each round of voting. Please make sure that you have the correct district and vote number at the top of your ballot, if you will check those for me. Once you have highlighted, which we've given you highlighters, once you have highlighted the correct candidate that you choose to vote for, the mayor will then ask if everyone has completed their vote. Does anyone wish to change their vote? And then you will pass them to the center aisle, and we will have employees come pick them up for you. I will then read the name of the commissioner and the candidate that they voted for and plot it on the computer screen so that you can see it real time. Are there any questions?
Any questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Leverett?
So just one candidate, or can we?
Yes, one candidate per voting ballot that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Beal?
Is this where we also ask for walk-in applicants?
Where we
also ask for walk-in applicants?
We closed the floor on
We did?
nominations
Okay,
earlier.
thank you. Just want to make sure. Thank
Yes, sir. Commissioner Knight?
I just want to make a brief statement before we start the whole voting process. I just want to say that, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners and guests, I know I, as well as other commissioners, have received a slew of recommendations and documents to review regarding this appointment, with over 12 candidates applied. I want to thank each and every candidate for stepping up and presenting themselves in the community to serve in this capacity, some who have held this position before, and others who have held other elected or esteemed positions. That being said, with so much to review currently, I think it would be a disservice to each candidate who has taken the time to present their application for us to hastily review and come to a decision in such a short time. I believe we as commissioners owe each one of these applicants a fair opportunity to have their applications thoroughly reviewed. During an election process, it takes months with ample time for citizens to review information on each candidate. This process is similar but much more condensed. However, under guidance provided in the rules of procedure for filling vacancies by county legislative body, Rule 8, Section 7, upon motion passed by the majority of the members of the vote may be postponed, so as to provide more time to review definitively each candidate to make an informed decision. 5 minutes to speak and over 12 applications to review in under a week does not present time to come to a fair and adequate decision. For that reason, I would like to present the motion to move this vote to the next applicable county commission meeting to allow each commissioner the adequate time required to review each application thoroughly. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but I can't in good conscience make this decision here tonight in such a hasty manner. Thank you, sir.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Ms. Jackson, are you finished with your part?
Yes, sir.
Just for the general public to understand, we will vote 6 rounds on all the candidates. After 6 rounds, if there is any candidate that receives 0 votes, those candidates will be eliminated. And then we will vote on the 7th, 8th, and 9th round. And at any time, if we reach a majority, we'll be finished. But after 9 votes, if we do not have a majority, on the 10th vote, we will eliminate down to 3 candidates. In other words, the 3 candidates with the most votes. We will then vote additionally through the through the 12th vote if no one receives a majority. After the 12th vote, the 13th vote will be down to 2 candidates, and those 2 candidates will be voted on the 13th, 14th, and 15th times, and at the 16th vote, the mayor can break the tie. So that gives you an idea of what our process will be. So, Ms. Jackson, are you ready for your first ballot?
Yes, sir.
So, commissioners, if you would, please fill out your first ballot. You're going to pass them to the center.
Michelle, do you mind helping us, please, ma'am? Yes. Yes, pass them to the center and they will pick them up. Michelle, if you can get the last 2 rows, Tiffany will get the first 2 rows, and we'll try to keep those in order so that we can announce them in the proper order.
I don't know where you're going to... Has everybody voted? Does anybody want to change your vote? I think if you pass it to the middle, I'm not going to ask that question anymore, commissioners, to speed the process up. So I think everyone has voted. Commissioners, as they're reorganizing these, if you will pass them and keep them in order, that will speed this process up.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Keene votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Yates. Commissioner Bryant votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight. Commissioner Knight, did you submit maybe a second ballot? You're abstaining? Commissioner Albert votes for Corita.
You skip Commissioner
I'm sorry,
Johnson.
wait a minute. We don't have, oh, here he is. I'm sorry, he's out of order. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. Mayor, you do not have a majority.
Thank you, ma'am. We will now go to round number 2.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Keene votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Joel Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Yates. Commissioner Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Raznick votes for Corita. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace.
Ms. Jackson, can you confirm Commissioner Knight's abstention?
Yes, we did not receive a vote from Mr. Knight. You do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right, we will now go to round 3.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Keene votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Yates. Commissioner Bryant votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight is abstaining. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. You do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right, we'll now go to round number 4.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. We missed one. Commissioner Leverett. Just one moment. I think we have one out of order. Yes. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Morrow. Commissioner Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita.
I think we missed. Mr. Wallace's vote's in the wrong line. It's on Mr. Knight's.
Yes, sir. I just realized that. Hold on just one moment. Thank you.
That's a lot of mouse moving. You're doing a good job.
So the little boxes are turning into blurs at the moment. Okay. Commissioner Albert is next, and he voted for Corita. Commissioner Riccone voted for Wallace. Mayor, you do not have a majority.
All right, we'll now go to vote number 5.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Wallace. Commissioner Bryant votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight is abstaining. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. You do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right, we'll now go to round number 6.
And Mayor, after this vote, all candidates that have received 0 will be removed from the ballot. Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Harris. Commissioner Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. We got this out of order again. Hang on just one second. Commissioner Garland votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace.
That last one didn't register.
I don't think it did either. Just one moment. There we go. We do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right. This is our 7th round of voting, so the candidates that did not receive a vote will be dropped off. I'm going to give Ms. Jackson time to clean up her. Are you going to do anything to your spreadsheet, or are you going to leave it like it is?
Mayor, we're ready when you are.
Ma'am?
We're ready when you are.
Okay.
Are you ready for him to vote?
Okay, we are now voting on our 7th vote. The candidates that received 0 votes in the 6th round have been eliminated. So you're now voting your 7th round, commissioners. Please pay attention to how you mark your ballot.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Harris. Commissioner Bryant votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. You do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right, and no one is eliminated. So we'll now go to our 8th round of voting.
Wait a minute, I didn't hear you. That it? 9 and 11. Double checking. Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Harris. Commissioner Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. I did it again. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. You do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right, we will now go to our 9th round of voting. No one is eliminated.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Keene votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Potvin. Commissioner Harper votes for Yates.
I think Ms. Yates was removed from the ballot. I'm sorry.
You are correct. Excuse me. So we need to give that ballot back to Commissioner Harper. Thank you. Did you have it? Did you have the ballot? No, it's here.
Mr. Harper, you can vote by voice vote if you'd like to.
That's okay. It's coming back. She was. And the correct vote is Commissioner Harper votes for Wallace. Make note of that. Commissioner Bryant votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. You do not have a majority, Mayor.
All right, and we eliminate, we're down to the top 3 candidates at this for round 10. So give you a chance to clean your spreadsheet up.
Okay, so in this case, Potvin is the only one, right? And Harris. So we're leaving 2, Corita, and Wallace, right? 2, 5, and 10 on the next round.
Okay, commissioners, we're on round 10. You ready, Ms. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
You see the 3 remaining candidates left?
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchett votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Corita. Commissioner Harper votes for Wallace. Commissioner Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. Mayor, you do not have a majority.
All right, we're into will be our 11th round, is that correct, Ms. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
All 3 candidates remain on the ballot.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Keene votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchard, votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Corita. Commissioner Harper votes for Wallace. Commissioner Bryant votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight is abstaining. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. You do not have a majority.
All right, we're on to our 12th vote.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Keene votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Butts votes for Burkhart. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchard votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Corita. Commissioner Harper votes for Wallace. Commissioner Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace.
Yep.
So at this point, Mayor, we have to eliminate down to two, which would be Corita and Wallace.
All right, on our 13th vote.
Commissioner Gannon votes for Wallace. Commissioner King votes for Wallace. Commissioner Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Ray votes for Corita. Commissioner Leverett votes for Corita. Commissioner Hodges votes for Corita. Commissioner Butts votes for Corita. Commissioner Tangi Smith votes for Corita. Commissioner Chandler votes for Corita. Commissioner Lewis votes for Wallace. Commissioner Creek votes for Corita. Commissioner Pritchard votes for Corita. Commissioner Woodruff votes for Corita. Commissioner Beal votes for Corita. Commissioner Harper votes for Wallace. Mr. Bryant votes for Wallace. Commissioner Rasnick votes for Corita. Commissioner Knight has abstained. Commissioner Johnson votes for Wallace. Commissioner Albert votes for Corita. Commissioner Riccone votes for Wallace. Mayor, you do have a majority.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Congratulations, Ms. Corita. I hope you'll serve us well. Commissioners, we're going to take about a 7-minute recess, and I'm going to put my timer on 7 minutes, so I'm serious about the 7. Now back in session. We're on to our resolutions. Our first resolution is Resolution 1911, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners appropriating funds for architect design fees for a new middle school, Kirkwood Complex. Have a motion for approval, Commissioner Butts, second, Commissioner Beal. Any questions? Commissioner Johnson. Would y'all make his mic hot?
I don't think.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little information about this. This property that was brought to us at our informal meeting. This was brought to us in the Land Acquisition Committee, and we looked at, I believe it was 3 possible properties to put the new school, and each of these properties had their problems. And the school system was told at the meeting to reevaluate these properties, look at the problems, and either solve the problems or find a new location. And now we are presented with a crisis, because if this is not done now, then it puts us out of our time frame that we need for when the population explosion hits the school. And my issue is that it appears that over the past couple of decades, that's kind of been the status quo, is that there is always a crisis with the school system that the commissioners must swing in to the rescue, no matter what the cost is to the rest of Montgomery County. And I feel that we as commissioners have a responsibility, not just to the people in this county who have children, and not just to the children, but to every single citizen of Montgomery County, and all the citizens pay taxes. This is everyone's money. This is, as I see it, an attempt to cover the sins of the past with a mistake in the present, which will be a disaster in the future. And to clarify that, this property, it sits between Guthrie Highway and Webb Road. And if you've ever been on Webb Road, you would know that for all of the attention that we got for Highway 76, Webb Road makes Highway 76 look like Interstate 24. And if you can imagine the teachers and the buses and the parents driving on that little narrow road, and then you imagine the school buses having to cross a railroad crossing to get onto the property, you kind of start to see the problem. The property does not front on Guthrie Highway. And the kicker to the whole thing is the property sits diagonal from the construction and demolition landfill. This is all information that we did not get on last meeting. The sins of the past, the property that fronts on Guthrie Highway was bought by a company in 2002. It's 157 acres, and they bought it for $440,000. The property that the school system bought, which is behind that property, is approximately the same size. Bought it in, I believe, around 2008, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.2 million. So this appears to be an attempt to try to do something with this property that they got. And now we are to take that $2.2 million that we spent for that, and then $1.1 million for this design, and then another, what, $71 million? Is that what a school's going for now? And if you really want to irritate someone, if you want to push them to extreme anger, then you put their children in jeopardy. And with the complaints that I get with the smell that comes from the landfill, and what it is the sheetrock breaking down as it gets moist in the earth is what it is. But with the complaints that I'm getting from that area now, can you just imagine when we send hundreds of school children to sit across from that every day, all day, for 3 years? Do you want to answer for that? I question, I just question how this could be allowed to get this far, that this could be overridden out of committee and completely breach protocol and bring it to the commission floor. And the words were, we thought this would be the best way to go. So you walk in overriding protocol and you come to this body and tell this body what is best to do with the taxpayers' money. There is a procedure that we follow. There is a time and a season for all things. There is a way to do things. I cannot in good conscience sit idly by and watch this happen. So it would be my formal motion that this resolution be sent back to committee so that it can be done properly and it can be done with the best interest of all the citizens of Montgomery County, the children that will be going to this new school and the taxpayers that will be paying for it. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, did I get a motion in a second?
Yes, sir, you had.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, 2 points of clarification. Are you making a formal motion?
Yes, sir.
Would you mind restating your motion?
It is my formal motion that this resolution be sent back to the Land Acquisition Committee.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. I must agree with Commissioner Johnson. Prior to Commissioner Johnson being voted in on the commission, that whole area was my district, and we sectioned it off due to the making sure everybody had the right amount of voters and stuff like that during that year. It's way out by the Kentucky border. For the last 10 years, I know that I have and other commissioners have on here asked for other alternatives for Kirkwood, and we always come back to, well, this is where the Regional Planning Commission wanted it 12 years ago, and they told us to come up here, and we can't find any other property. And whenever we go look for other property, as on the committee that Commissioner Johnson was talking about, we never really get anywhere, and we continue to spin our wheels, and it always comes back to, well, we'll just have to go with Kirkwood. Well, I'm with Commissioner Garland Johnson, and I agree that I'd like for this to be sent back to the committee. So I'd like for you to vote yes on this amendment.
Okay. Any other discussion? I think just as a point of order, somebody's going to have to help me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we abolished the Land Acquisition Committee through the Rules Committee. It was just placed under the Budget Committee. Well, but I think we need to be mindful of the fact that Mr. Johnson's motion is for the Land Acquisition Committee, and I think you probably need to restate that motion again. And Ms. Jackson, if you're okay with that.
Well, I would therefore move that we send this resolution to the Budget Committee.
You're making a motion to send it to the Budget Committee, correct?
If that is where this function has now been relocated.
We
Yes.
currently do not have a Land Acquisition Committee, and that would be my recommendation to you. Is there a second to Mr. Johnson's motion? Second by Commissioner Gannon. Any other discussion on the motion to push your button, please? Mr. Harper?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I seconded the original amendment, and I would certainly accept that as a friendly amendment, Commissioner Johnson's.
Okay. I think Ms. Jackson's recorded the seconds. I think with all due respect to the school system, we should allow them to come forward and address it if you would care to address it.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for your time this evening. This has been a long process, and coming in as Director of Schools, and of course, about a year and a half ago, walking into this process, I've learned quite a bit. I think one of the most important pieces that is, as Mr. Johnson indicated, Commissioner Johnson indicated, there was at one point a land acquisition committee that worked on this and looked at it. And it was my understanding during that process that not only was Kirkwood looked at, but two other sites. And he spoke of particular issues at Kirkwood in terms of that land. And it was my understanding with the studies that have been done over the course of time, I think Mr. Ripple was the individual that led a big majority of those studies. Those concerns were rectified in terms of the issues that were out there at that particular time. Now, I'm at the point where I just want a school, and I just want schools for our children. Regardless of where they are at this point, I'll be very frank with you. If we do not put a school in place, and if we slow this process down now, we're going to be in a position where we're over 100% at many of our schools. And again, I'm a new fella in town. Again, the last couple years, this process has gone on for about a year and a half, 2 years. We're in a place where we need to do something, whether that's here, there, or wherever. We need to get this done as quick as possible, or it's going to affect the education and how we educate our children. We're in a position right now where we have a piece of land at Kirkwood. It just happens to be Kirkwood. If it were somewhere else, I would be saying the same thing right now. I don't feel like our backs are pressed against the wall, because the Kirkwood site will work for us for our next middle school. And middle schools are our biggest concern right now. So with that being said, there's a lot of information that has been studied. We've worked with the mayor, we've worked with the chief of staff, pretty much at least once a month, probably over the course of the last 4 months since the abolishment of the Land Acquisition Committee. So there's been a lot of information, and both the mayor and chief of staff can speak to those things that we focused on over the course of time. I don't have enough time to sit here and share with you all that has gone on in the last 3 to 5 months to get us to this particular point. So, with that being said, regardless of what happens in terms of slowing this down, just know that if it slows down and we don't have design money, it's going to push us back anywhere between 5 to 7 months in terms of the construction of our next school. And it's going to put us in a position where we're going to move from 83 mobile classrooms to more mobile classrooms, which is not conducive, in my opinion, to the safety, to the education and well-being of many of our students. So I just ask for your support, regardless of where we end up moving forward. We're in need of schools, and we're in need of schools now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. House. Commissioner Johnson, do you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Dr. House. And my statements were not a reflection on Dr. House, because, as he said, he just got here. And as I said when I started, this has kind of, in my opinion, become a routine. And he was not here to be part of that routine, so I understand. As far as the scheduling and the need for the school, and that was exactly my point. It was that the members of the school administration that was there at the Land Acquisition Committee meeting were well aware of this timeline, and they were well aware of the issues that we faced, and they did nothing. That's the point. That's the point. Until the meeting on last Monday night, there was nothing said. There was nothing relayed back to the members of the Land Acquisition Committee. That is where we begin the issue. If we could, just put the school there and know that everything would be fine in the future, then that would be all right. But with the issues that we have with that land, with the issue that we have with the neighbors to that land, that's not something that we can just sign off on. That's not something that we can just go in for. If you're talking about design money, that's what the revenue stream was created for. That's understandable. But to design a building for a piece of property that we have not seen yet becomes an issue. We cannot design a building for this property because this property, as I see it, is unacceptable, and I hope the rest of the commissioners see it that same way. That may not be the case tomorrow. They may change their mind, and the next time this comes before us, it may go a completely different direction than the way I'm speaking of now. But to design a building for a piece of property that does not exist yet is a problem. And as far as the Planning Commission, Director Tyndall had an intern this past year that found several sites that would be very conducive to a new school. And he was not listened to. None of the plans, none of the ideas that he presented were used at all. It was basically, this is what we're going to do, and you are going to pay for it. That is a problem. That is a very, very serious problem. And it's a problem that I've been seeing out of the school system for several years. And that is, you know, I can't express enough that that is no reflection on you because you just got here. But until we get some real oversight over what is going on with the entity that takes up the lion's share of the county budget, because when the complaints that I get as a commissioner about the issues with just ordinary procedures in the school system begin to weigh on me, there's a problem. And then on top of that, to see this possible disaster shoved into the laps of this committee, of this commission on last week, and basically told this is what you're going to do because the clock is running out. Well, you had the same clock we had. And that is the issue that I have. It's not that, it's not some personal vendetta. It's not that I have some issue. It is that this is irresponsible. And it is quite frankly reprehensible. And I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, but quite honestly, last week I was insulted. Thank you.
Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. I am under the understanding that we purchased this land back in 2007. Is that correct?
It's been quite some time ago. I don't know the exact year, but it's been quite some time ago.
2008. Yeah. Okay. Why would we be waiting so long to do this?
Is that question directed to me or
Yes,
to
sir.
the commission?
Yes, sir. I mean, if we bought this over 10 years ago.
I think it would, and I wasn't here either when they bought it, but I know Mr. House has been here a shorter time than I am. But Commissioner Bill, I think what happened is years ago, the Industrial Development Board actually had the property, and they sold it, and then the school system bought it, and the school system, to my understanding at that time, went through the Regional Planning Commission looking at future growth, and they selected this site out of several different sites. And I think probably the biggest factor one of the big factors that pushed the site to this point was the proximity to the industrial park or the industrial property that the IDB owned at the time. And that was mainly in what I think is called the South Park along International Boulevard. I don't know that I'm correct, but I think they wanted to have about 1.5 miles border from it.
Buffer. Yeah.
Buffer. Mm-hmm. And so, and I see Mr. Grant's up there. He probably knows a little bit more than I do, but that is my understanding. That property was bought based on data that the Planning Commission had and the school system had. That's where the growth was going to go, out in that area, and that site was selected.
And Mayor, I would like to address a couple things that the Commissioner Johnson mentioned. Number one, he mentioned that during the Land Acquisition Committee, the group did nothing over the course of time to look at other pieces of land, and that's actually absolutely false. The group actually moved forward and not only contacted the owners of the other two pieces of pieces of property. One of those pieces of property, I'll just say that we weren't welcomed on their property. They let us know that they weren't going to sell and they weren't interested. The other one, it was pretty much the same attitude as well. They were contacted multiple times. And I'm a person that always tries to deal in data and always tries to deal in facts as well. And what we know is that you spoke of specific issues at Kirkwood. If they're issues, they're issues. But I don't know the specific issues that we're talking about. And again, we even sat down with the new city county planner as well just this past week, and had a great conversation with him, and really ended that conversation, quite frankly, knowing that, you know, we are where we are, and Kirkwood was, even with some reluctance on his part, was where we had to go and where we were heading. If that's, you know, changing, this is quite the surprise. And again, if it's us going somewhere completely different, that's fine. But I just want the record to reflect that moving forward, for us to put us in a situation where we're slowing down the process, we're not trying to move forward with any backdoor. If there are major issues, I would have loved to hear about them outside, you know, outside of coming this late in the game. This is where we are. I haven't heard the specific things that you're speaking of, and if there are others, people all know that, you know, my door is always wide open to questions. My staff, my operations staff, who has worked closely on this, has again worked closely with the mayor to move forward and get where we need to go. But we're in dire need. We have several schools. If you look at Rossview, if you look at Northeast, and you look at where Kirkwood is being placed as a possibility, it can be the siphon to those schools to really cut out the major growth, or not the growth, but the major overcrowding that we're seeing in those particular areas. This is very worrisome. And again, if we speak about issues, I think we need to speak about the specificity of what those issues are to the commission, because right now I don't know what the issues are at Kirkwood. It's been studied at a high level, and those issues that you spoke of, I'm very, very unclear about. So with that being said, I'd be glad to answer any other questions that the commissioners may have.
Commissioner Bill, do you still have a question of Mr. House?
Yes, I do. So the Kirkwood complex is supposed to be alleviating some of the overcrowding from Northeast and Rossview, if I'm understanding correctly.
So in 2021, the focus will be to do a major redistricting across the entire school district. All 40 schools are subject to possibly seeing some kind of redistricting, but a big portion of that will happen at both Northeast and Rossview.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Pritchard.
Dr. House, in the event that this school defaults and it's not built, how dire will the emergency become? Because it probably is going to take at least another 6 to 12 months before another property can be found that's substantial for what you need. And at that point in time, I know that right now we have at least 83 mobiles. What are we looking at as far as dire need becomes?
You're looking at some of our schools are above 100% capacity. A number of our schools, even up to 108% capacity. There is a dire need. So if we were to slow down the process here and push this back 6 to 12 months, whatever it ends up being, we only put more students in mobile classrooms. And thank goodness we received a security grant from the state. That's one of the things we're trying to focus on with the security grant. We've partnered with the county, of course, with additional SRO officers. It puts more students in safety risk. It also puts more, you guys, if you knew the number of individuals that reached out on a weekly basis around not wanting their student in a mobile classroom, it would be overwhelming to you.
overwhelming to you. Personal emails to me, to principals. It's just something that's a reality that we will continue to run into, not to mention just the idea of the core of our buildings. When we talk about the core of our buildings, we're talking about cafeterias, restrooms. We're talking about, see, if you have mobile classrooms and those students are having to come inside and use restrooms, and you have 4 to 5 classrooms at a time waiting to use a restroom, the core of that building is not prepared. So there are a multitude of different issues that you run into that you might not see from the seats that you're in, that our principals, our teachers, and ultimately our students are having to deal with on a daily basis.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and I trust your expertise since we're paying you to have it. In your opinion, then, do you feel that Kirkwood would be okay as a middle school at this point in time?
I do. I don't see, if I wish I had the maps in front of me right now to show you where Kirkwood is in comparison to where the growth is actually happening, the band. I feel like it's a selection. Now, one thing I don't know that Commissioner Johnson talked about, I don't know the magnitude of the number of individuals that have reached out to him in terms of neighbors. What I do know is that the design and construction money includes about $5 million that would include road and infrastructure improvements that would make those roads wider, that would improve the non-likelihood of major incidents on those roads that are currently not prepared, as he eloquently indicated.
Thank you, Dr. House.
Sure.
Commissioner Johnson, do you have something else?
I did, yes, sir. The issues of which I spoke were dealt with very specifically last week, and they were answered by, oh wow, forgot his name.
Mr. Summerall.
Mr. Summerall, thank you, on last week. And one of those was the issue of the core of the building and whether the gymnasium and the cafeterias and the theater areas and the general areas of the school would be oversized, in which expansion of the school would be possible without, you know, the running into the difficulties of not having large enough common areas. So that was covered. But
I was
actually
speaking of the current cores that we have, not necessarily the future cores, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
And I also spoke with him about this school falling into the same trap that we fell into with other schools, wherein on the day that the school opened, it was already full because the area around it was scheduled for development into subdivisions and neighborhoods. And he said that that would not be a factor with this school as well. Do you know that 157 acres that is right next door is already planned for neighborhoods and subdivisions?
The neighborhood that's right next door to Kirkwood?
The property that's right next door that fronts on Guthrie Highway.
Yeah, I think according to
that's been planned for over a year.
I think
now.
according to our city county planner, there's over 5,000 residential lots, which leads us to, quite frankly, a need beyond Kirkwood. We really need to be focusing our efforts on not just Kirkwood, but what's the next 150 acres that we're going to focus on. We really need to be thinking 6 schools down, 6 schools down the road.
But what I'm saying is, you find yourself now building a school that's going to be full when you get it built. So you're right back where you were. And his statement that he made last week is people will go to where the schools are. So if you've already got that many people that are going there, whether there's a school there or not, and then you put a school there, how long do you think you're going to be able to put people in that school?
And that's the art of redistricting.
Right.
So in a master redistricting, that's why we're waiting till 2021 to really make the shifts across the entire district. And that may mean we make shifts all the way over to Montgomery Central and shift families. And that's why we don't want to do it in bits and pieces. We want to do it all at once and do a major redistricting so that we don't fall into a position where we have a school that's at 104% when we open up. So I understand exactly where you're coming from, but that's the job of the redistricting, is to really focus our efforts
to take a close look at some of those schools that may have 90% or 86%, and really fill some of those seats and shift throughout the entire district of this 544 square miles that we have in the county to ensure that we don't run into that kind of position.
And so you honestly feel that having children in portables is more of an issue than having a school directly diagonal from a landfill?
So I'm not an expert in reference to this particular landfill and the sheetrock that you mentioned, but what I do know is that it was studied by the experts, and the experts came to the conclusion that it was not an issue.
You think the parents will buy that?
I think the parents want a school. I think the community wants a school.
If that was the case, they'd be fine with the children being in
And I
portables
think,
where they are.
I think what we have to think about is if we're talking about houses across the street from this school, if the residential think it's good enough, then parents are buying those homes. So I can't speak for the hundreds and thousands of parents that will be coming into this community, but I think their money and investments into neighborhoods in that Kirkwood community and other communities throughout this county speaks mountains.
You know how many people bought houses near the racetrack because their realtor showed them the house during the daytime?
I'm not familiar with the racetrack that you're speaking of, but
Because,
I don't doubt what you're saying.
What I'm saying is just because there are houses in that area does not mean that people who do not live in that area want to send their children there. If I want to live next to the landfill, that's fine. But it is not acceptable for me to tell you that you must send your children over to the landfill all day, every day for 3 years. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, point well taken. Again, I would go back and look at the data and the specificity around the study that was done. If it came up as an issue, it's an issue. It's not my understanding that it came up as an issue. I'm not the expert that did that study. It was before my time, but as I looked at the information, it did not come up as a major issue. But point well taken.
Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. House, appreciate you being here. I think most of us, I speak for most of us, our comfort level is not very high about the Kirkwood Middle School project. My first, just speaking very transparently and very clearly to you, let me ask you this question about infrastructure. How far is the water and sewer connections from the school at present, the site?
So I'd be glad if you all, we've gone over all of this with the mayor. I don't have the maps with me.
I mean, and I'm not meaning to be argumentative tonight. We've been here for a while tonight.
Yes, we
but
have.
I would think.
I think it's all out on 79. I don't know that as a fact.
So
I'm pretty sure it's on 79.
It's a half mile away or a mile away or?
Again, I don't have the maps with me. Actually, Jeff Tyndall might know. We sat down and went over this information with him just this past Friday. Jeff, do you want to join me at the microphone and share that information with the commission?
This property is one parcel off of Highway 79. There'll be a road built through that parcel, and it's my understanding that the utilities will be brought along that road into the complex to serve the entire complex. I don't know the exact distance. I know it's not a mile. I don't think it's a half a mile.
I guess my point, what I'm trying to illustrate is this resolution is for us to give design fees for a building site that is not ready to build yet. There are infrastructure concerns that have to be solved first. And I have a lot of discomfort with that, personally. And I do have a lot of discomfort with the location of this site being so close to the basically landfill area. So I just want you to know, and I don't mean to be argumentative at all, but when you're asking us to approve design fees for an area that has major infrastructure concerns, one of the things we struggle with in Montgomery County is infrastructure. If there's anything my constituents tell me that they're unhappy with, it is infrastructure, and it is 24/7 that I hear these calls for infrastructure. They ask me why our roads aren't sufficient. And we have a 2-lane road that will lead to this, I understand. A 2-lane road to a middle school that's going to be highly populated.
Yeah. It's my understanding there are $5 million worth of infrastructure funds that are written into this as well that should, from my understanding, rectify the infrastructure issues that could be on the table. That was actually discussed in a meeting earlier today.
Right. I know that in my district we had a widening of 41A. That widening of 41A went over 18 months behind schedule. So, I mean, when we're talking about road projects, especially in our county, they tend to take a lot longer than I think they should sometimes. So, I mean, that could put us behind the ball as well. So, just pointing out those things to you and tell you.
And again, I'm not here to defend Kirkwood. I'm just here to share the facts. It's up to you all as a commission to make that choice to move forward with it or not. I support your decision and what direction you all go.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. I am understanding both sides of the argument here. So I'm going to try to think outside the box for a minute. Is it possible to approve money for design fees, but it not be tied to a certain location?
I think that'd be awfully hard to do.
Very difficult.
Okay, because I understand that we have a need, that we need something there. But I understand the concern back here also, that I feel like this is being rushed. That's why I asked, how long have we owned this? Because it's been almost 12 years. So that we cannot do that.
Sure.
If I could just, I'll try, and with all due respect to all the comments that have been made, I'm not necessarily, I'm not an expert, but I don't know that this is the best site for a school that will service that area, but I know that that area needs servicing because that's where all our growth, the majority of our growth is, and that's where a lot of our capacity problems are right now. And if you look at the Ross View and you look at the West Creek and the Northeast complexes, I think one of the key things that Mr. House is saying is that they're going to have to look at, and we have, I don't want to use the word insisted, but we've strongly recommended that the school system look at an overall rezoning of the entire Montgomery County, and that has to be done, in my opinion. The other points that I'd like to bring out is this property was purchased, and Mr. Johnson, you and Mr. Gannon an apology. I did appoint an ad hoc committee. Ms. Gentry found it for me. I appointed it back in February of 2018, and we did meet, and we did look at additional sites, but nothing ever went forward. And with all due respect to every commissioner, this isn't new. This isn't new. We presented a 5-year growth plan when we had this orientation for all the new commissioners, and I think 20 commissioners were here and heard it. Mr. Truitt showed it to you on the board, and Kirkwood Middle School was part of that 5-year funding plan. Is it the best site? I don't think it is, but we own the property. Montgomery County actually funded it to buy it. If we want to hold it up and go buy some additional property, if that's what this body wants to do, that's what we need to do, but we need to get busy doing it. Any other questions of Mr. House? We have a motion, and with all due respect, we will refer it to this ad hoc committee. Commissioner Johnson, I apologize for that. Just commissioners, so you'll know who's on it. It's myself, Mr. Truitt, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Gannon, Commissioner Riccone, Mike Frost from the Highway Department, Mr. House, Mr. Summerall, Mr. Grant from the school system, Mr. Garland from the school board, Mr. Baggett from the school board, Mr. Patterson from the school board, and Mr. Tyndall from the Planning Commission. And I guess, is all 3 of those guys still on the school board?
Garland, Patterson,
and Baggett. Yeah, they are. Yeah. Okay. So without objection, Ms. Jackson, the motion will be to refer it to the Joint Land Acquisition Ad Hoc Committee. And we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Leverett.
I just wanted to know if the gentleman here had anything to say. It looks like you had something
Yes.
to add to this.
Mr. Grant?
Yes, thank you. Yes, if I could, I know we've got a large number of new county commissioners in here, and I've worked with those that have been here prior to this past election. I've been with the school system now for 24 years as the chief financial officer. When we talk about this land being purchased back in 2000, I guess it was 7, at that time, Hemlock was a driving motivator as far as the industrial park that motivated us to buy that land at that particular time. I think the mayor said it well. Is this the most ideal piece of property? Possibly not. But when we did bring back that ad hoc, the mayor's office and staff had made several other recommendations for us to pursue, and we pursued those other pieces of property without any success. It wasn't that we just didn't do anything with it. We pursued those. The other thing that I would share with you is that we're here today because of this body's actions in the past that have supported. That land acquisition committee was made up of school board members and county commissioners that made the decision on the purchase of the property and the decisions as we move forward. We had heard the concerns about the landfill. That's the reason why the ad hoc was brought back by this body, and we were asked to look at additional property. We did those things. Again, it would be nice if there were some other opportunities, but as Commissioner Johnson himself said, you know, he's concerned about that this is going to be filled up the very day it opens. And that's a possibility. But if we delay this with trying to seek even further property, which we've had no success in the last 6 months, and we delay this another 6 months to the year, it's going to be even worse. So again, this is not us trying to force anything down anybody's throat. We have pursued every avenue that has been given to us with the intent of trying to find an alternative site. But this is what we have today, and the need is today.
Commissioner Johnson.
I'm going to say this and I'm done. The problem is there was no communication. You may have researched the sites, you may have gone out and broke this thing down to a subatomic level, but there was no information brought back to the committee. None at all. So when I say you've done nothing, it's because I've seen nothing. That is the point.
That's absolutely.
And even with what information have I received as a member of that committee?
The committee received it.
Since our last meeting until the informal meeting of this body last week. What did I receive? What did any of us receive?
So Mayor, it might be in your best interest to respond to him, because I'm not sure where the funnel of information is going, because we reported back to the committee. Now I'm not sure if
on the committee, so was he. We didn't get anything.
We had a meeting with them.
The last meeting that we had, we discussed these 3 properties, and they were told to figure out the problems or find somewhere else. We haven't had any other conversation until Monday night.
I don't recall it like that, Commissioner Johnson. It may have in fact been that way. I don't recall us leaving that meeting that way.
There were problems, the same problems that we have with that property tonight are the same problems we had at the meeting. Nothing was resolved. So to bring that last week and say this is what we have to do, frankly, is a slap in the face. Nothing was resolved. And to this moment, it's not resolved. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to refer Resolution 1911 back to the Joint Land Acquisition Ad Hoc Committee. We have a motion and a second. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, this will go back to the committee and we will meet immediately, Mr. House. Resolution 1912 is a resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners appropriating funds for design fees for a 12 classroom addition to West Creek Elementary School. I'm sorry, I got way ahead of myself. Ms. Jackson, does anybody want to change their vote? It's too late. Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 18 yeses, 3 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. I apologize, commissioners. Now, Resolution 1912, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners appropriating funds for design fees for a 12 classroom addition to the West Creek Elementary School. Motion for approval, Commissioner Harper. Second, Commissioner Riccone. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 1913, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners appropriating funds for design fees for a 12 classroom addition to Rossview Elementary School. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Tangi Smith, second. Commissioner King. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 1914, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners approving amendments to the 2018-2019 school budget. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Lewis, second. Commissioner Riccone. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, if you would, please tally the vote.
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you. Resolution 1915, resolution appropriating funds for the purpose of employing 2 additional deputy sheriffs to staff the 19th Judicial District Circuit Courtroom for Division 5. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Butts, second. Commissioner Beal. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 1916, resolution to accept funds from the Clarksville Montgomery County School System pursuant to a Safe Schools grant as part of the School Safety Act of 2018 to fund a new position as a SRO supervisor position. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Bryant, second. Commissioner Joe Smith. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 1917 has been pulled from the agenda. Resolution 1918, a resolution urging the General Assembly to support restoration of Register of Deeds Commission for collecting sales tax. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Pritchard, second. Commissioner Hodges, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 1919, resolution amending the budget of the Montgomery County Election Commission for additional deputy clerk position. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, second. Commissioner Rasnick. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you. Resolution 19-110 is a resolution to adopt Montgomery County Committee structure revision as to term limits per the Rules Committee. Commissioners, we talked about this at the informal session. I would appreciate if this motion would be made and remove E911 from that list. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, second. Commissioner Pritchard. Any discussion on 19-110? Commissioner Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to request that the Regional Planning Commission be pulled for separate consideration.
So we have a motion to divide the question, to pull planning commission from it?
Take it up separately.
Yep.
The body is, the first motion is amended, and take up his piece.
What, doesn't he have to get a second on that? So is there a second to pull the planning commission? Commissioner Tangi Smith? Okay, so what number do we give this?
That's Ms. Gentry, what she wants to call it. If you give the next separate number, which is supposed to be 19-117.
Be 19-120. No, 18, I'm sorry. So we're voting on resolution 19-110 as amended to remove 911, and we're separating the planning commission, and we'll do a separate vote on that. So everybody good on what we're voting on the first time? This is excluding 911 and the planning commission, and we'll have a separate vote on the planning commission itself. I guess if it fails, whatever the motion's going to be. But anyway, we're voting on 19-110, removing 911 and the planning commission.
We're a little off. We need to vote on his motion to divide the question.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So, we're voting on 19-110 to divide the question.
And that was a motion by Commissioner Beal and
Second by Commissioner Tangi Smith.
Okay.
So this would be just removing the planning commission from 19-110. Any discussion? Commissioner Pritchard.
I don't understand the reason for, excuse me, for removing the Regional Planning Commission from the term limits. It may be Commissioner Beal might have a reason for that.
He's removing it to divide the question. If you vote yes to divide the question, it will be taken up as a separate item, absent all of the others.
Okay, so
Her question was why? Well, but maybe we can get to that. Commissioner Gannon.
Yes, Mayor, and I guess that's where I'm going to. Earlier when we asked, Attorney Harvey said that was the Regional Planning Commission's renewals were based on state statute.
Let me say this to you. I'm not trying to be a strict parliamentarian, but a motion to divide the question needs a second, needs a vote, and there's no discussion on it.
Okay.
Okay.
So wait till you get to that piece,
Okay.
and then I'll.
So we have a motion and a second to divide the question, and that's removing the planning commission. My Robert's Rules of Order aren't the best in the world either. So we're voting to remove or divide the question, removing the planning commission. If you would, please register your vote. Anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 14 yeses, 7 noes, 0 abstentions.
Okay, so now we can go back and vote on 19-110.
Correct.
And if we could have a motion for approval of 19-110, removing 911. Is somebody make that motion? Commissioner Bryant, is there a second? Commissioner Harper. We're now voting on 19-110, removing 911. The Planning Commission has been removed. So if you would, please register your vote. Ms. Jackson, does anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 20 yeses, 0 noes, 1 abstention.
All right, now we're going to vote on the question to be divided. Ms. Jackson and Ms. Gentry, this will be 19-118. Because under new business, we have a resolution, so this will be 19-118. I'll let you get your machine ready.
So, Mayor, it reads exactly as 19-110 did, except it applies only to the Regional Planning Commission.
Are you ready on the machine?
Yes, sir.
So do we have a motion and a second for 19-118? We have a motion by Commissioner Beal. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Leverett. Any discussion? Commissioner Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make an amendment that we adjust this to two consecutive four-year terms instead of 3, for a total of 8 years instead of 12.
Okay. So we need to vote on that amendment first because it's 19-118.
That's correct. But
Point of order or point of information. Was not that length of term, the 3 terms, based on a state statute according to Attorney Harvey on our last meeting?
It's a 4-year term.
Turn his microphone on, please.
It's a 4-year term. How many consecutive terms you serve is not required in the statute. So you can, this body could say it's 1 4-year term or 17 consecutive 4-year terms, but each term is 4 years by state statute.
So we have a motion to amend 19-118 to reduce the term limits from 3 4-year terms to 2 4-year terms. We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Mr. Tyndall, would you like to address that? I'm sorry, Ms. Pritchard, if you'll push your button, I'll call on you.
There we go. Good evening, Commissioners. Speaking with Attorney Harvey today about this a little bit, we did some research. There was a resolution both done at County Commission and an ordinance done at City Council in 2002. He's correct in saying the state statute says 4 years. I called Economic and Community Development at the state today. They interpret that to be unlimited terms. So communities have in the past put term limits on it. We were established in 1962, and up until 2002, we were under unlimited terms. In 2002, there was an initial push to make it a 2-term, as you suggest tonight. Immediately thereafter, they pushed it to 3 terms, both at the city and the county, through similar resolutions within a month of each other. There was a lot of discussion on both parts, but they both passed for 3-year terms. So currently we're on, whether it's our commissioner member or our community members for the county, 3 consecutive terms of 4 years can be served. Then you have to sit out for 4 years before you make another appearance on the board. We do have one member right now who's done that path, our current chairman. The thought at the time was that the Planning Commission takes it's a very steep learning curve. There's a lot that goes on. You know, you talk about subdivision, site plans, rezonings, and the overall planning of the community. It's a lot of responsibility. And the thought was it takes at least 4 years to spin up, and then we wanted to get as much time out of folks that we got them trained up in those first 4 years. So that was just a little bit of background for you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Tyndall? Why, he's at the podium? All right. Commissioner Gannon.
What is the education process? Doesn't each planner have to go take a certain amount of classes annually or every other year or something to that fashion?
Yes, Commissioner Gannon. All the staff has to have a minimum 8 hours per year of education. Commission members have to have 4 hours, and similar to Board of Zoning Appeals also has to have 4 hours as well for their commission. So minimum 4 hours a year. We provide that at least once a year, and then some other continuing ed throughout the year.
Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that my reasoning for wanting to do this is because we're going through and we're adjusting term limits for these committees to give everybody an opportunity to serve, but yet we're not wanting to change the RPC. So that's my basic reasoning for wanting to do that. Thank you.
As others, we didn't change. Commissioner Tangi Smith.
Mr. Tyndall, what is your recommendation? You think it should be 3 terms?
I heard about this about 12 hours maybe or so ago. I haven't had a lot of time to look into it. Based on the history, initially I'd say if it's not broke, don't fix it. It would affect not just our commissioner representative, but also our community representatives. That's the one thing I'd want to look into. Obviously, commissioners being 4-year termed, having 2 terms, 8 years, not a ton of commissioners, save Mr. Creek maybe, that have served 12 and more years. In fact, Mr. Creek probably remembered when this resolution was passed back in 2002. He's probably the only member here that remembers that. So, you know, it's up to the body. I would not request that the city go lockstep with the county on this. You know, if they would want to decide independently whether they'd want to step their members from 3 years to 2 years. Don't forget the county has 4 members on the Regional Planning Commission and the city has 5. So that's how the commission's made up. So if it's the will of the body, 2 terms consecutively, I think it would work. We'll make it work. If it's remains 3 years, it's been working.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to vote on 19-118 as amended, changing the term limits from the Planning Commission from 3 4-year terms to 2 4-year terms. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 7 yeses, 13 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, now we're voting on 19-118, leaving the term limits as they were originally proposed in 19-110. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Pritchard, is there a second? Commissioner Tangi Smith, any discussion? You're voting now to, as it read in 19-110. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 20 yeses, 1 no, and 0 abstentions.
All right, 19-111 is resolution regarding per diem compensation for commissioner participation in all committee meetings. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Arnold Hodges, second. Commissioner Riccone, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 19-112, resolution to modify the purpose of the Jail and Juvenile Detention Committee. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Beal, second. Commissioner Lewis, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
You did, please. Resolution 19-113, a resolution to appoint interim to fill vacant seat for District 22, created by resignation of Senator Mark Green. I would appreciate someone making a motion for that person to be Ms. Carita. Is there a motion? Yeah, I'm going to need you to state it. Commissioner Bill, I saw your hand first. Would you state the motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we appoint Ms. Rosalind Curita for the Senate seat for District 22.
Second, Commissioner Pritchard, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 20 yeses, 0 noes, 1 abstention.
Resolution 19-114 and 19-115 have been pulled from the agenda. Resolution 19-116 is a resolution to amend the budget of various funds for fiscal year 2019 in certain areas of revenues and expenditures. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Bryant, second, Commissioner Albert. Any discussion? Commissioner King.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a following budget amendment to Resolution 19-116 to move some funds from the following accounts: 171-91110-2, 018-91, 57070-TR336, which is the Veterans Plaza Roof Fund for $10,761, plus the 719114002-017915760-BP 803, which is the EMS Station Fund of $14,239 to the following account: 7191110-018-91-53040-TR400, the Veterans Plaza, $10,761, and then another one, the 171-91110-002-017-9153-040-BP 400 for the $14,239. This funding being used for the design of the vacant space for Veterans Service Department at the plaza. I'd like to make that as an amendment.
So you heard Commissioner Keen's motion to amend 19-116. This is part of the cleanup. These funds are going to be moved basically into the proper account to allow for design services for the vacant space that's adjacent to IT, for the relocation of the VSO office who have outgrown their space at Veterans Plaza. So we have a motion to amend. We have a second. Commissioner Gannon, any discussion on the amendment? I'm fine voting on it as 19-116 if without objection, and we'll vote one time. Does see any objection? Everybody understand it? It's just part of the cleanup. All right, so we're going to vote on 19-116, Ms. Jackson, as Mr. King stated. I hope you got all those numbers.
We have a recording of it, sir. We do not have them all copied down.
If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Under new business, Resolution 19-117. This is a resolution to appropriate funds to cover damage to the historic courthouse as a result of water damage on January 6, 2019. Commissioners, to hear this, we need a motion to suspend the rules. We have a motion by Commissioner Albert, second by Commissioner Harper, to suspend our rules. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
All right, now we can hear Resolution 19-117 is a resolution to appropriate funds to cover damage to the historic courthouse as a result of water damage on January 6, 2019. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Gannon, second. Commissioner T.C. Smith, any discussion? Commissioners, I think the resolution kind of reads the way it needs to read. We are working with our insurance company. They have been fantastic, and this will allow us, especially in our accounts and budgets office, to maybe build some offices where we had just office dividers in there. Our insurance company is working with us on that, but we know that we're probably going to see some unseen things as we go through that, and this is just giving our engineering department, our accounts and budgets office, the flexibility to not have to come back to this body and stop the repairs. So If you would, please register your vote. Yeah. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. On to the county clerk's report. Ms. Jackson, would you please read your report?
Comes Kelly A. Jackson, County Clerk, Montgomery County, Tennessee, and presents the County Clerk's report for the month of December 2018. I hereby request that the persons named on the list of new applicants to the office of Notary Public be elected. The oaths of the Deputy County Official and Sheriff's Deputies are approved as taken. This report shall be spread upon the minutes of the Board of County Commissioners. You received your list of new applicants last Monday. You do not have any that are signed by personal surety, and you do not have any names that need to be read into the minutes for bond purposes.
Is there a motion to approve the clerk's report? Commissioner Creek, second. Commissioner Pritchard. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
We have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, under your reports filed, you'll see items 5, 6, and 7 require approval by the commission. It's the Highway Department County Road List, October to December of 2018, the Highway Department County Road List 2019, and the Highway Department Road System List. Without objection, we'll vote on those 3 items all together. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Keene, second. Commissioner Butts, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Nominating committee, Chairman Gannon, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to enter the following names into a nomination. Agriculture Extension Committee, 2-year term, max 2 years now. Sue Cooper, Commissioner Brandon Butts, and Joshua Johnson are nominated to serve. They have served their last 2 years are nominated to serve the next 2-year term to expire January 2021. Commissioner Joshua Beal and Commissioner Jason Knight have been filling an unexpired term on the Jail and Juvenile Committee, 2-year term, 2-year max, and are now eligible to serve their first 2-year term to expire January 2021. The Museum Board, Jennifer Johnson and Dr. Jennifer H. Johnston and Tommy Bates are eligible to serve their second 3-year term to expire January 2022, and Fraser Allen has been nominated to replace Suzanne Langford for a 3-year term to expire January 2022. The nominating committee, Geographical Area Number 1, Commissioner John Gannon is eligible to serve his second 2-year term to expire January 2021, and Geographical Area 3, Commissioner Arnold Hodges, and Geographical Area Number 5, Commissioner Joe Creek, have been filling an unexpired term and are now eligible to serve their first 2-year term to expire January 2021. School Liaison, 2-year term, 2-year max. In Geographical Area Number 5, Commissioner Camila Chandler has been filling an unexpired term and is now eligible to serve her first-year term to expire January 2021. We would like to enter all those nominations and make a motion to enter those in.
We have a motion to accept the nominating committee's nomination. Is there a second? Commissioner Beal, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 19 yeses, 0 noes, 2 abstentions.
Under county mayor nominations, these 3 committees will require commission approval. Animal Control Committee, Commissioner Joe Smith nominated to replace Commissioner Garland Johnson for a 2-year term. Tracy Albright nominated to replace Amy Shaver for a 2-year term, and Captain Scott Thornton nominated to replace Sergeant David Odell, City Police Department, for a 2-year term.
Purchasing Committee, Commissioner Carmel Chandler has been filling an unexpired term, now eligible to be nominated to serve a one-year term to expire January 2020. Commissioner Pritchard, filling an unexpired term, eligible to be nominated for a one-year term expiring 2020. Commissioner Beal, an unexpired term, eligible for a one-year term expiring January 2020. And Commissioner Leverett, filling an unexpired term, eligible to serve a one-year term to expire January 2020. Rules Committee, Commissioner James Lewis nominated to replace Commissioner David Harper for a two-year term to expire January 2021. Commissioner Tangi Smith nominated to replace Commissioner Larry Riccone for a two-year term to expire January 2021. Commissioner Brandon Butts has been filling an unexpired term and is now eligible to be nominated to serve a two-year term to expire January 2021. Commissioner Garland Johnson nominated to serve his second two-year term to expire January 2021. And Commissioner Loretta Bryant has been filling an unexpired term and is now eligible to be nominated to serve a two-year term to expire January 2021. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, second. Commissioner Gannon, any discussion on the county mayor nominations? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 19 yeses, 0 nos, 2 abstentions.
Under county mayor appointments, the Budget Committee and 911 Communications District Board require commission approval. Commissioner John Gannon term has been extended to September 2019 to be concurrent with his term as Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Garland Johnson appointed to replace Commissioner Larry Riccone for a one-year term to expire January 2020. Commissioner Ricky Ray has been filling an unexpired term and is eligible to be appointed to serve a one-year term to expire January 2020. And Commissioner Charlie Keene is appointed to serve another one-year term to expire January 2020. And under the 911 Emergency Communications District Board, Sheriff Fuson has served his initial term and is now appointed to serve a four-year term to expire January 2023. Chief Ainsley served his initial term. He's also appointed to serve a four-year term to expire January 2023. And Chief Jimmy Edwards is now appointed to serve a four-year term expiring January 2023. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Lewis, second. Commissioner Rasnick, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
We have 20 yeses, 0 nos, 1 abstention.
As a matter of reporting to the Commission, the Museum Board, Commissioner Larry Riccone has been appointed to replace Commissioner Charlie Keene for a one-year term as an ex officio member, term to expire January 2020. Stormwater Board of Appeals, Brian Trotter appointed to replace Nick Powell for a two-year term. Brad Martin appointed to replace Eric Sims for a two-year term. Mark Cook appointed to replace Matt Lau for a two-year term. Grant Shaw appointed to replace Leo Milan for a one-year term. Alan Caldwell appointed to replace Alan Burkhart for a one-year term. George Watson appointed to replace Alan Mosier for a two-year term. And Stanley Calhoun appointed to replace Allison Means for a one-year term. That is all of the county mayor appointments. Commissioners, real quick, a couple announcements. If you plan to attend the TCSA County Government Day on March 4th and 5th in Nashville, please let Debbie or Shelley know as soon as possible. Registrations have to be made no later than February the 8th. The host hotel is full, so the only rooms available will be a neighboring hotel. Just a reminder that our informal meeting will remain on March the 4th. So there is a little conflict there. I'd like to personally thank Miss Jackson and Tiffany, and is Teresa still over there? She is? I thought she may have went home. Thank y'all you did an excellent job tonight, ladies, and Michelle, thank you for the ballots, but the process, even though it was lengthy, you did an excellent job, so thank you. And just a final reminder, commissioners, I would invite all of you this Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
up at the downtown Commons broom ball. It's the mayor against the general. So I know we've got a couple of commissioners that have signed up to play, and we still got room for more if some of y'all want to. With that being said, I'm going to call on our sheriff to adjourn our meeting. Ma'am? The what? The breakfast. You want a what? Oh, the power breakfast in the morning, yeah. 7:30. If you ain't got a ticket, you can't come.
Looks like we all have risen, so oh yes, this honorable county commission now stands adjourned. May God save this state and its honorable board of county commissioners.